Hello, welcome back to another podcast episode. What episode is this? 31? 32, and it is the last one of the year, 2021. We love you. This is the Euan Grimley episode 32, the last one of the year. Super excited. And yeah, he was a nice dude, wasn't
he? Yeah, really interesting. He's like the guy who does loads of amazing double exposures.
Yeah. Not, we definitely know him. Yeah, not only, I mean, he's a great photographer, but yeah, he definitely caught our eye through his kind of double exposures on film. I mean, they're incredible, aren't they? We talk about them.
Yeah.
And
right at the end of the episode, we remember we haven't actually talked about them. So we talk about everything else, and then we're like, oh yeah, shit, your work as a photographer, we should probably talk about that.
But yeah, if you haven't seen his work, go check it out. You'll only get inspired or jealous over it. But yeah, it's really good. But yeah, we won't talk too much. We'll let you listen to the episode. In other news, last episode of the year for the podcast, but we have got some others pre-recorded. So we're excited for those to come out next year, along with the actual front website itself. Stay tuned for details on that, but it is coming early next year. And beanies. Super excited to announce these. Yeah, they're awesome. We love them. Really good quality, thick, look good.
Yeah,
if you want to buy one.
Colours.
Oh yeah, we've got it in mint. Yeah, there you go.
Mint, pink, black, or grey.
Yeah. So it was definitely a hard choice choosing. Unfortunately, we're not in a position where we can have one of every colour ourselves. We want to give them to you guys. But yeah, thank you to everyone. Well, by the time this goes out, we've just launched them yesterday. So thank you so much to everyone who has ordered one. Honestly, we were blown away with just how many messages we got in a short amount of time. I think we're actually already limited on a few of the colour. I think we've only got a few left of a few colours. Thank you so much.
But I'll put a link in. You can message us on Instagram, or I don't know, comment here if you want to buy one, and we'll let you know where to send us some cash.
Yeah, send us some money. No, but seriously, thank you so much to everyone who's reached out and bought one already. Super honoured on that. But yeah, they look cool. They're really good.
Right, so this is the last episode of the year where we're speaking to somebody else, but we want to do a little roundup of the year in the next week, so if we can get that done before New Year's Day. So we might put out one more if we get around to it, basically.
And it'll just be a general update of what we've kind of done in the last year and what we're hoping to achieve next year. Well, what we will achieve, the website is definitely going to launch. Front will be launching, but we'll discuss about some of our struggles along the way, I guess, and fill you guys in with the details of what we've been doing. And we want to be open and transparent with you guys, especially as you've been supporting us.
Yeah,
we haven't even launched a website yet, and you guys are already supporting us, which is amazing. Yeah. So we'll take you along the journey, so to speak. But yeah,
do you want to say
the
hello?
Episode.
Hello.
Right.
Hello, mate.
Right, this is it then. Do it.
Can Rudy say drum roll, please?
Say drum roll, please. Rudy.
Drum roll, please.
That's cool, isn't it?
I'm consenting to be recorded. Yes.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Right. So if you can state your name, age. No, I'm joking. So welcome to the podcast, Euan. So we've been excited to talk to you. There's a lot of things we want to ask you. There's a lot of people that the fans want to know. Obviously, it's going to be super chilled out. Don't worry about that too much. But we always start off the podcast exactly the same, and we just want to know how you got into photography. It doesn't matter if you're on your phone, camera, anything like that. We just want to know how you got into photography. Was it at college, school, or something you just picked up? You tell us.
Yeah, well, first of all, also thanks for having me on, and I'm very excited to be here as well. I listen to the podcast, so it's great to be on it. In terms of getting into photography, it's a really kind of not particularly engaging story. Like, it's quite a new thing, to be honest. Well, I think it's new. Like, I was thinking about it recently, obviously when you guys asked me to do this, and that was one of the things I thought of, because I knew you would ask it, like, how did I get into photography? And in my head, I was like, oh yeah, it's been like a few years. And it's actually been like 5 years or something. It feels like hardly any time at all. But since I started like taking film photos, like 35mm photos, and sending them to a lab to get developed, it was when I first moved to Copenhagen, which was, like 5 years ago now. And it was all just actually using like disposable cameras. That was really how like my whole like kind of like entry into photography, obviously film photography, because that's like the only photography I do, but photography in general, like the whole thing just came through using those disposable cameras. It was when I was moving from, I'm in London now, but I used to live I'm from Edinburgh. So when I was moving from Edinburgh to Copenhagen, I kind of just, like wanted to start taking pictures. I think it was, I wanted to start taking pictures of my friends who I was leaving behind in Edinburgh. So like I had some memories, and also then wanted to kind of like document my time in Copenhagen a bit as well. And at the time I had like a really shitty, sorry, is that right if I swear? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Bleep me out. I had a really rubbish iPhone at the time. And it was like, when just like an iPhone gets really old, and it's like everything on it took ages. Like I couldn't open up the camera because it would take like 30 seconds to even open the camera up. And then when you take a picture, and it's like, it's kind of like that with all phones, like the flash comes up and then it slows down, and then it takes the picture. So like the whole process of taking the phone out and taking a picture on it took so long. So I never ever really took pictures on my phone at all. So I've actually never been like a kind of a photography person at all in any way. So even on my phone, everyone has a camera in their pocket, but I never used it at all. I never really enjoyed photography or had any interest in it. But then when you're looking back at your like camera roll, it's always great to find photos on there. You look back, like 4 years ago or whatever, and it's lovely to see pictures. So I think when I was moving to Copenhagen, I was like, I will actually want pictures of my Edinburgh friends, and I want pictures of my time in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
So
did you know that you were going to come back from Copenhagen at the time? Like,
no,
was it a short-term thing?
It was a planned, potentially long-term thing. Like I was moving for my master's, which is it was a 2 years master's, but I was planning on staying, but I moved with the intention of potentially staying there for good. And that was what was going to happen. Actually, I ended up moving to London to stay with my girlfriend, but that was kind of just by chance as well. Like that was the best place for us to be. But I can't remember why, but at some point I ended up with like a disposable camera in my pocket, or like at some party or something. And it's so easy just to like what I would do is I would wind a disposable camera up and have it in my back pocket with the flash on. And then whenever something like nice was happening, I could just whap out and take a picture of it really fast. And it was just like an instant picture. And that was so much more useful than like the phone. So I started doing that just before I moved to Copenhagen. And then for the first few months of being in Copenhagen, using these disposable cameras, like now I feel bad about it because it's so bad to like burn through so many disposable cameras because it's such bad waste. But at the time I wasn't thinking about that. And I think I went through like 8 disposable cameras, getting them all developed. And that was like my first introduction ever into like photography, and obviously film photography. And it was satisfying having the negatives and stuff, getting the scans back. Like it's obviously like there's something nice about film photos, especially that kind of like, flashed out in a dark space kind of. So it's on a night out and you're using the flash, and it's just such a kind of distinct look. And I like that, I guess. So when we were out and about, just using that disposable camera, then you bring it to Copenhagen. And then I actually I asked my dad. My dad has a bunch of he's an architect, so he has a bunch of cameras. And I asked him like, do you have any cameras I can have? And he gave me this digital camera. I think it was, I actually don't even know. I think it was like a Canon. Like I know nothing about digital cameras. He gave me a digital camera, and I tried using it for like a month or something. Didn't really like it because I knew nothing about photography. So all the settings and screens and menus like meant nothing to me. I didn't really know what was going on with it. And then since I've been using the disposable ones, I was like, Dad, do you have any like film cameras? And he was like, yeah, I do actually. He had an old Nikon FE, which he hadn't used in like, I don't know, a good 15 years or something. And he was like, yeah, see if this works. It was in perfect condition when he gave it to me. It's no longer in perfect condition. I really messed it up. But it was in perfect condition when he gave it to me. He was like, it should work. Just check if like the light seals might need replacing, like the shutter might be a bit sticky or something, like the mirror. But yeah, like, and I took it to a camera shop in Copenhagen, and was like, yeah, like, can you check if this works? He put a battery in it, kind of like manually checked the shutter speeds, and he was like, it seems like it works. He actually just gave me a roll of film. They held like photography classes there, so they had this big bucket of like just cheap Fujifilm, and he was like, yeah, here, take one of these, shoot it, bring it back, and we'll see if it works.
See if it works, yeah.
And so I took it away and shot it, and from then I got some really nice photos, or what I thought at the time were really nice photos on that roll, and I was like, yes, this is like the kind of camera experience I've been looking for, because it's all just like right in front of you as well, which is so nice with a film camera compared to a digital camera. Like I didn't know what all these menus meant and what all the settings in the digital camera meant, but then with the film camera, it's like with the Nikon FE, it's like shutter speed, aperture, like ISO, and like that's it. Like you just have it all right there, and it makes a lot of sense. Although saying that, actually, when I first used that Nikon FE, because I'd obviously just tried out that Canon, the digital one that my dad gave me, and so I thought like ISO was like I didn't know what it was, but I was like, you increase the ISO to make the picture brighter. So I put this roll of film in, had no idea what ISO meant. I was going around, and when I was in dark places using this camera, I was putting the ISO setting on my film camera way up, like this will make the image brighter, where it obviously kind of does the opposite. It gives it a shorter shutter speed. But so I was using it totally wrong, but weirdly from that first roll got some really nice photos. Some that I look back on, like there's 3 photos from that roll that I'm like, they're actually really nice photos. And then that was my that was it.
Shoot. There's so many things on there. I had the same thing, like when my first camera was an SLR, and it had 3 settings on it.
Yeah.
It did have an aperture priority setting.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how it worked, so I just put it on manual, because I understand when I move that, the light goes like that. It just makes sense to use it on manual, and nothing else to muck around with. It's like, and I bought a digital SLR a few maybe months after buying that camera, thinking, it'll be easier to learn on because I can get instant feedback on what I've shot. Yeah. But it didn't, I never enjoyed it as much.
Yeah. I think like there's also something about like, I think you guys have mentioned on the podcast before, I can't remember which episode it was, but it was like, you don't really need to learn it with a digital camera. Like you kind of find a setting that works, you shoot, you get good pictures, and it's like, sweet, I don't really need to think about what these settings actually mean anymore. I can kind of just leave it to do its thing. Whereas the film, it's more basic, but you can just
you kind of learn what this to be able to take a photo, don't you?
You learn what the settings mean a lot faster, because you kind of play with those 3 variables, and you figure it out very quickly.
Yeah. I had the same thing with the ISO. Like I had a balance thing, so you could push it, but it obviously it only works when you've got it on aperture priority.
Yeah,
you could overexpose or underexpose.
Yeah,
but when you have it on manual and you push the exposure compensation out, it changes the information on the
metering.
So I thought, in low light, push that up. Somehow it was like,
well, which is kind of funny, because it kind of does work like that. I realized looking back at those shots, because I was like, it was like, right, oh sweet, so I get a way better shutter speed on this setting, so I'll do it. But it actually, in the end, you get underexposed images, but you've at least got like steady images because you've had a decent shutter speed, if you know what I mean. And there's actually something, like film obviously has a lot of latitude, and like there is actually something nice about those photos that are underexposed a few stops. Like you still get the image. It looks kind of like dusky and dusty, if you know what I mean, but it still works. And those images that I like that I got, they're massively underexposed because they're inside in low light on 200 ISO film, and I was shooting at like nowhere near a long enough shutter speed to actually properly expose it, but they still actually look really nice. So, and obviously people do that deliberately and then push their film. So it's like, it's not that much of a surprise. It did work.
Yeah. I just actually developed some of my own film yesterday, and I've scanned them in today. And
black and white.
Black and white, I'm not at the peak of colour yet. This was only my second ever roll of black and white. Myself. But it came out better than the first time, right? Yeah. Nice. But there's like 3 or 4 photos on there that I took in low light, handheld at like 30th of a second or whatever. Yeah. And they've come out like reasonably sharp. Yeah. But they're underexposed. Yeah. But there's one of them.
You can adjust that quite easily as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can tweak the photos, you can edit them, do whatever you want. But I actually quite like how it's turned out.
Same.
And like there's 2 photos that in like a mini little collection together or side by side, it doesn't really affect it, and it's quite a nice surprise.
Yeah.
I
actually do that quite a lot.
You know what I mean? When it doesn't come out perfect, you can kind of just roll with it.
I do that really often when you've like brought your camera out for shooting on a sunny day, then obviously the sun goes away and you're like, oh, right, okay, well, it's over now. Like my 400 ISO film is no longer appropriate. But then sometimes when you're out and about and you see kind of nice scenes like under street lights and stuff, and it's like, right, the meter is telling me it's way too dark. But I normally find if you just stick on 30, like put it as high as you can, know that your hand can stay still and just shoot it. And it's like, even if it's your camera's telling you it's like 5 stops underexposed, it's like it still often looks fine. Like you get an image, and low light photography also shouldn't be as exposed as a daylight photo anyway. So it's like you still get the nice impressions of the light and stuff. And it's like, I know we just go for it. And like, sometimes the results are really nice. Yeah.
Well, it depends as well if it's just using an all over kind of meter of like the available time in general. But I think like I've got my one camera with a light meter, it's a spot meter. Yeah. So you kind of like move it around.
Mine's
it's saying it's okay now. That's
the Nikon FE also like it's like center weighted. And I don't know how much it's center weighted. I think it's like I know nothing really about it, but it's like a certain percentage is from the middle and then it takes some other stuff from the side. So I'm always doing that. Like I'll go up to the light area with my camera like zoomed in on it. I'm like, okay, it says it's like 30. And then when I go out and look at the image, it's like a quarter of a second, but it's like, well, when I was right in there, it said a 30th, so it will probably work at 30th, and it does.
Exactly. We've lost Jamie as well.
Over time at some point.
It was interesting what you said about having an iPhone that didn't work properly. Yeah. I had the same experience of just it literally, like 30 seconds to turn on. Yeah. It didn't make me do what you did, but I like that having a kind of not properly functioning piece of digital technology. Yeah. The answer to that was get a disposable camera and have that sound, because it sort of feels like that's going backwards.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it totally was going backwards, but it was, it was just the fact that the main thing that annoyed me about that was like pressing the photo button. It's like, when you're, I don't know, it's like a busy moment, and there's obviously all this thing in photography about like, capturing at the perfect moment. And you're seeing this scene and you're like, right, nice, I've got it in my lens, on my phone. It happens, you press the button and then like 3 seconds later the photo gets taken, and it's like, I need it no matter what the settings on my camera believe were correct, and it's like waiting to get the exposure right and adjusting. It's like, no, just take the photo no matter what the settings are like. I just want that impression like now. I just want that photo now.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a cool way of doing it. And it's weird, isn't it, when you use like a camera like that? Like I've got a show camera. I don't know if you've seen them. They're like,
no, I don't think so.
Essentially, like it's a disposable camera, but it's like a reusable.
I really want one of them, to be honest. I mean, to be honest, I really just want like a point and shoot as well. I'm Googling it now. Yeah,
I've seen them. Yeah. Like, what you've always got to remember.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
I always think as well, like when it comes to film photography, like it seems daunting and scary, but film is so forgiving.
It is,
and I always forget that. Like you said, like, you can lower the shutter speed down and whatever you might do, but it is way more forgiving than you'd realise. To the point where you shouldn't panic about getting a result. You're kind of sticking to what you should be doing. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, like with that first roll that I shot, right? Because I was going in, adjusting the ISO. Every single photo I took, I moved the ISO dial on my camera. And I think like right near the end of the roll, like on the, 30th photo or something, I realized that was the wrong way to do it, because I was like, there's just something, the ISO dial on the FE is actually really hard to change. You need to like pull this plastic thing up and then twist it. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. That's too awkward.
Yeah.
I realized that way too late, then Googled it, and I was like, all right, I'm doing it completely wrong. No, sorry, that's actually not quite right. That's not right. So I sent the film away to a lab, and then I think I'd realized this is wrong. So then I called the lab up and was like, I'm really sorry, can I cancel this order? Like, I've just realized I've done this whole process completely wrong. That film's going to be unusable. There's not going to be any photos on it. Can you just cancel that order? And they were like, no, sorry, like we've begun the process already. Sorry, you've been charged. We can't like refund you or whatever. And I was really annoyed at the time. I was like, I was really pissed off that they hadn't canceled the order, because I was sure there was going to be no usable photos on it. But then they sent it back, and there was like, most of the photos were totally fine. So it was like, it kind of made me realize, like what Jamie's saying, it can seem a daunting medium, but really if you have film in your camera and it's letting light in, you're probably going to get something usable. Like, it might not be a perfectly exposed image, but it's going to come up with something.
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's what I'm saying. Like with this camera, it's a fixed, I think it's like 125, and I think the aperture is like 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and I'll happily like walk around with that, use it for like street photography, things like that. But then when I'm using like, I've got a rangefinder, I'm so like, it has to be exactly lined up. I would never dare just like put it on FA.
Yeah.
And like put it on the same settings as these and just go, like shooting it around.
Yeah.
But I think like, why not? Why not do that? And it's like you'd get exactly the same result.
Yeah.
But it feels like when you're using that, it feels like a little toy, but in a really nice way.
Yeah.
And definitely, my rangefinder's got a really decent lens on it, so you get really nice images. It's got a plastic lens. They're not comparable, but the experience of doing it is like, it's like way more fun. It feels a lot less serious. Which is
I'm definitely like guilty of kind of, taking my actual camera like too seriously now. Like, I used to just take pictures of my friends. That was literally why I wanted a camera in the first place, was to take pictures of my friends. And now I'll have my camera out and I'll never take pictures of my friends. Like, I'll have the camera out and they'll pose for a photo, and I'm like, nope, not wasting film on that. And it's really bad, because like, that was what I got it for. And it would be nice to just, use it like that and just take pictures of my friends. And like, but I'm trying to do it more now, because I realize even though I don't like post those photos or anything, it's still nice to have the photos of your friends and stuff. And there's definitely something that like Instagram has kind of taken away from like the way I treat photography, because it used to be no one else saw it. It was literally just me and my friends who I'd send the photo to. Yeah. Now I suddenly think about what other photographers will like and what's good from like a photography point of view, where that used to never be a consideration. It was literally like, which moments do I want on film? Like, which moments do I want photos of? So whenever we were going out and meeting people, I'd bring my camera to take pictures of them. Yeah. Whereas now I'm like, will the light be nice? Are there going to be nice colors there? Like, are the conditions right for these kind of like artistic photos? And my focus has totally changed, which is a shame. That's why I want like a point and shoot or something, so I can just kind of, I brought my brother. I got a twin brother, and I bought him a point and shoot recently. So he's now, I wanted to encourage him to like take over the function of taking pictures of my friends, which he has kind of done. But
that's really cool. Yeah. I have a like. I used to take a digital SLR and an SLR everywhere with the SLR in my bag, and I'd shoot everything digitally.
Yeah.
If I'd see a scene,
it's a good idea.
Oh, okay, I want to capture this on film because it feels more like important.
Yeah.
I'd swap cameras for a bit. But then you do end up with the thing if you've got like 2 sets of photos of the same thing.
Yeah, totally.
Pointless. But and then you go down this whole like rabbit hole of just overthinking everything.
Yeah.
And now I've got a little like Lomo whatever.
Yeah, nice.
That to me is just a waste a roll of film kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
And because it's like a fun little thing to use and it's less serious, but then you're like, well, on the other side of it, why you're wasting a roll of film?
Yeah.
I did shoot a roll of film on it, and it was expired film, and everything came out underexposed. I was really annoyed, and there was nothing when I sent it to get developed. I was like, "There's nothing on here I'm interested in seeing."
Yeah.
So I might as well have just shot the whole film with a little, like, digital.
Yeah. Anything. Yeah. Totally.
It was a bit of a waste, and it like leads you on to sort of it's brought me down a little bit in terms of like photography since I saw that roll of film. I've been a bit what's the point? What's the point of ever taking photos ever? It's really boring.
I've tried really hard recently to like not because I have get that urge all the time. You've got your camera out with you, you've got some nice film in it, you're out to take photos, so you just take photos. And I've tried to really stop doing that for that exact reason, that you then get the rolls back and there's just loads of rubbish photos on it, and it's so disheartening because there might be like a few good photos there that you were hoping they would turn out well. Then if those photos don't turn out well, you just have a whole roll of disappointment, if you know what I mean. So so now I try and take way more time, and it might mean that I don't get a roll finished for weeks, but when I do get it back, hopefully it will be majority good photos and photos that I'm pleased with, because it's so discouraging getting a roll back that you look at the photos sometimes and you remember taking them and you're like, why did I bother pressing the shutter? I knew that was going to be a rubbish photo. Like, it was never going to be good. And it's like, I've tried now, because it's hard to catch yourself in the moment because you're all kind of like pumped up. You've got your camera, you're feeling good, you want to take pictures, you're looking at something, the shutter is primed and you're aiming down it, you focus, and you're like, I can't not take the photo now. I'm so far, but I'm trying to now just not take that photo. If it doesn't feel right, I'm just like, no, don't take it, because you'll just regret it, even though you want to get through the film because you want to get it sent off and developed. It's not worth it for me now. I've been disappointed too many times.
I'm like that with any landscape photo I take. I always go somewhere and I'm like, oh, this is awesome, I definitely want to take a landscape photo, and I get it back and I'm like, this is shit, shouldn't have taken that photo. You know what I mean? Like, I can't help it.
But then it's sad because then you kind of like stop experimenting as well. Like, and that's also part of the joy, is trying new stuff. And so it's like balance, I guess, because if you just stick to what you know is good and what you think, like tried and tested kind of photos, it's going to end up boring. It's going to end up dry. And like a part of the joy of photography is obviously like, trying new things. You see something you're inspired by and you're like, nice, I'm going to try that. And it might be a disappointment, but it's, you kind of need to balance between not wasting photos, but also still trying new stuff that might be a waste of a photo, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's also finding that balance point in terms of why you're taking the photo as well, because sometimes like we all do it. I'm sure like anyone that says they doesn't, they definitely do. But you'll see something and you're like, that's the photo I want to take, and then you're like, but this photo will look good on my Instagram feed or on my website or on my Twitter, whatever it might be. And really, you should remember why you're taking that photo. Is it for yourself? Do you know what I mean?
It's a massive. That's like such a like constant dilemma in my head now, because now I've like started posting my double exposures on Instagram. It's like I was saying to Luke when you cut out for a bit, it's like it never was nice.
I've now been downgraded to the bedroom, and I can't have the camera tilted anymore because it looks nothing like your bedroom. But and I'm on the iPad, so the sound.
It's fine. It's working, but it sounds all right. It sounds all right.
It works. Yeah, my bad.
But what I was saying is that like my motivation for taking photos has now changed, and it used to be like capture nice moments and capture moments with friends and stuff, and now it kind of is in danger of constantly drifting towards like take photos that I know will be received well. And I always try, like, I don't know what it is that's bad about but like that feels inherently bad. I feel like as an artist you should just never stray. I don't know why that's bad, but you just definitely shouldn't do that. I feel that. So I always try and it's been like a good system for me so far, is like, no, just take pictures of what you enjoy taking pictures of, experiment at your own pace, like go on your own kind of little projects and journeys, even if it doesn't yield postable stuff. I mean, the fact is it normally does yield the most postable stuff if you kind of focus on your own stuff, but as long as you don't have that in mind, because if like sometimes like I don't know, have a photo which is received really well on Instagram and I'm like, nice one, I know how to replicate that, so I'll do it. And I try replicate something like that photo, or like use the same ideas, and then it just comes out with really bland images because I've managed to capture like the basic kind of part of the photo, but it's missing all these little kind of intricacies which happened by accident because I wasn't thinking about little additional elements of the photo, which actually make the image as a whole thing really nice. And I've just managed to extract that one kind of main feature of it that I thought made it popular, and I've replicated it, but it ends up just really dry, sterile image. It's like, oh, right, okay, so it's still a hand with a flower in it, but it's actually, this one looks really boring. So kind of just focusing on what's tried and tested and what's done well is actually, for me, not a reliable way of getting what will then do well in the future. So like copying my well-received work does not produce well-received work, I've found. So it's constantly having to like, think of new ideas and kind of, you kind of get, it's in like, I'll be lying in bed and I'll be like, oh, I wonder if you could do that. And it's kind of chasing and trying those ideas, even when they fail a bunch of times, but trying to nail them. That's the kind of journey which leads to good photos. Even if it's not what I expected, it's like those kind of, like challenges or whatever, I don't know, that kind of lead to the best results. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. That really resonates with me in terms of what you're saying, because I was actually saying to Luke before we jumped on this podcast that, like you just said as well, like a certain type of photo could be well received, or you fall into this kind of niche of, well, Euan does the double exposures, right? But that doesn't mean that you're a bad photographer anywhere else. But at the same time, I think personally the true great photographers are the ones that go out and shoot what they happen to see, right?
Totally,
so like, they don't really have a style. Yeah, fair enough, it might be street photography, fair enough, it might be black and white portraits, or whatever it might be, but that's because they purely love that. But you might turn around tomorrow and be like, right, I'm into landscape photography now, and that doesn't matter because if you're passionate about what your next, whatever you're thinking,
that will yield the results you're looking for. That will,
and it'll be your best result. And if I'm invested into you as if I'm one of your fans, I'm going to appreciate what you're trying to do. But it is a fine line.
It is totally,
because you've then got to relearn, right?
It's totally. It's something I do think about all the time. Like my kind of constant fallback is, don't worry about the reception of it. Don't worry about how popular it's going to be. Just that seems like the basic. And if I kind of have that as the baseline, you don't need to think about much else, if you know what I mean. Like it's disappointing when photos you liked don't do well, but like if you leave it at that, then that's all it is. You post a picture and you move on, and it wasn't received well. Like, so what? As long as that's not your
the mystery of like the Instagram algorithm, or
exactly,
whatever it might be.
So it's stupid to read too far into it. I found it really interesting. You were speaking to I can't remember her name. Hannah, was that her name?
Hannah
Argyle. And so she kind of, her living is around photography and stuff, and you were and Instagram, exactly. And that is something which I've thought about loads. And I was listening to her, and it was like, God, that does sound stressful, kind of like being a slave to the algorithm, if you know what I mean. Like you can't, for when I post a photo which is poorly received, it's like, cool, move on. Like, that's it. Like the next one maybe will be better received. Whereas for her, it's like, all right, what went wrong here? She kind of has to think about that. She has to worry about it because it's her livelihood. And I've thought, recently in the past 6 months, like, oh, like, would photography be like a way to make money? Like, is that something I should think about at all? And my answer so far is just like, no, it's just too stressful. I like that it's my own thing, and like we've just talked about, like I can focus on what photos I want to take and what I want to produce, and I don't need to worry about how well it's going to be received. And I think if you made that switch and you're trying to make money off it, or it became your livelihood, you kind of have to think about how well it's going to be received. And that would just change the nature of photography so much for me, and I don't think I would like it.
It's also when you think about it, I mean, to be fair, I was messaging you the other day, and we were talking about this briefly. We were talking about skateboarding, and same in the same way you can relate it to photography, right? So like, I enjoy photography because it's somewhat of an outlet for me, right? So like my own photography, like I might get paid to do a wedding, fine, do you know what I mean? I'm there, like the bloody bride and groom know I'm there getting paid to take photos of them, right? But for my own passion projects, whether that's taking photos in the street or just on a photo walk one day or with a family and friends, whatever it might be, I enjoy that. And as soon as you put the pressure on yourself because you've got to pay, or you need a paycheck from it, do you enjoy it? And we were actually saying about this the other day, Luke. There's like there's a skateboarder called Ben Ramers who actually passed away a couple of years ago now, I want to say.
It must be,
years ago. And he basically, like, he got into skateboarding because it was an outlet. He wanted to be that rebel who did what he wants every day. And as soon as he became professional, the pressures of him having to go out and do the job was the exact reason why he didn't want to get into it in the first place. And I think that can be related across a lot of subjects.
Yeah, Luke, you do like music, don't you? You play in a band. So like that must be like something that's crossed your mind as well. Like it's like, you know, how much do you invest into it? Because the risk is you invest a lot and there's no return, or do you kind of like I make a lot of music as well, and I've played music since I was young, and I've kind of constantly worried about that as well, and I always shy away from it. Probably I don't know whether that's like because I'm too scared. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I always err on the side of leave it alone, kind of don't try and make money out of it, because I don't want to like taint it. I love the thing as it is. I love photography as it is. I love music as it is. And if I inject this new element into it, like money, I'm worried it will ruin it for me. And it's kind of like, it's like a kind of like cowardly way to approach it, because you're not investing more into it, the more you invest, the more you'll get out of it. But it's kind of it's fear of failure, I guess, is simply, which I'm not really like ashamed to admit. Like I'm happy to have it as a hobby. And, the better it does, I obviously feel great about it, but it's like, I'm kind of happy just to have it there as a hobby, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I've done it like a couple of times where I've been in a band, and this is going back like a long time, but where we were, me and some friends, we were in a band for years, and we just proper, like, we want to be signed, we want to, so we just played, like a million different gigs. We did loads of, like, we did quite well in terms of like we got quite far with it, but those quickly get really pressured, and then eventually we were just like, fuck it. We released a single, and we were like, that's it. Let's just leave it.
That's something. That's nice. It's nice to then have that. Like, this was us doing what we loved. We are happy with how this turned out, and we can look back on that. Like, that's kind of a nice place to leave it as well.
Yeah, and I've done it with I had another band, and we did like a couple of things. We did an album, and we used to play all the time. And then again, like it got it just very quickly gets really pressurized and less fun.
Yeah.
And now I still make loads of music, but I just don't really do anything with it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm really the same. Yeah.
I can't remember who it was. The other day I was listening to somebody. It wasn't, like Stuart Lee, the comedian. It was somebody like him, but it was somebody like him. But anyway, he was saying like the most sort of like interesting thing that you can do as a musician nowadays is to record music and do nothing with it. Everybody is just recording everything, and no matter the quality, it gets put on SoundCloud, it gets put everywhere, on Instagram. They've got all this stuff, and they were like, do the kind of Vivian Mayer thing where you just right,
it's more rock and roll to leave it and find it after the day you've gone,
and hope that one day somebody stumbles across it. You're like, so I'm like, every now and again I'll put something up on like Bandcamp, but then even just doing that, I'm like,
I know, it's stressful. It suddenly puts like it's suddenly you're waiting for other people to validate it, which is not fun, if you know what I mean. Especially it's fun if it suddenly blows up, and you're like, sweet, it worked. But when you don't put it up for appraisal, then it can't go wrong, if you know what I mean. You've had the enjoyment of making it, you're happy with the finished product, and that's the pleasure of it, if you know what I mean. You don't need to take it further and have it judged by other people. So
if your way of getting a thrill or excited about something is receiving response from someone else, or solely being that, like, obviously it's always nice,
it's always nice, but
if you're doing it to get compliments, you're doing it for the wrong reason. That's across anything,
and I feel that has a limit to it. I don't feel that's like a sustainable kind of reason to do in art. If you're
living in fear, you'll be living in paranoia.
And also, like, I think like to kind of like get involved in any art takes some like consideration. Like, your main focus should be the art, if you know what I mean, and that takes a lot of headspace as it is. And if you're too wrapped up in the likes, I don't know how you can be focusing on the product.
Mate, a good example of it is front. So we're starting front. It's been like a challenge for us. It's been something that's like we've been striving towards, and it's coming real soon. We'll fill you in a little bit more after this is done.
Nice.
For me personally, like, I'm not the greatest photographer yet, but I enjoy it, and it's something that I've got back into in the last 5 or 6 years. Like, I studied at college, and then I took a break, but again, I've always skateboarded, so I've always been around photography and filming in some aspects.
Totally.
But then the fear for me is like we've deliberately not promoted too much in our hometown, because our hometown can be a little bit kind of like, I don't know, like judgmental, I guess.
Totally,
for me, like there's a stage where I'm like, I don't want people turning around and saying to me, "Oh, you're starting a photography business? Like you're not a photographer." I'm like, well, what's that got to do with you, mate? Like, you either support something or you don't. Like, but now I've got to a point where I'm like, well, no, I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do what I want to do. Do you know what I mean?
That shows across as well.
I'm hoping it's well received. You shouldn't worry about haters. Do you know what I mean? People are always going to hate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah.
Even if you're a good photographer or whatever your field of expertise,
you'll always get some. If you read too far into people's opinions, you'll find ways to upset yourself. Yeah. So, like,
I like your photography, Euan. But there might be a day, I doubt there will be, but there might be a day where I don't like one of your photos. That's okay, right? That's okay. We're not always going to like everything that someone puts out.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's finding that balance again.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I think it's like, you could argue that there's like, whatever makes you go out and take a photo is a good thing. But, and if you're taking photos and you kind of really get into it and the doing it for likes sort of thing is making you go and take more photos, that's it's only a good thing. What do you say?
I was going to say, if you're only going out to do it for likes, you're going to burn and crash.
Well, I
think it was,
eventually, it's like, it's a good thing. It's like, well, it doesn't matter what the reason is. You're going out and you're taking photos.
Yeah.
You're going out and learning stuff. But if it's
just, how long can it last? Like, also, how enjoyable is that going to be? If you know what I mean, how long is it going to last?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, we've got to talk about double exposures, surely.
Double exposures. You're like the king of double exposures. And when I first saw them, I'm like, fuck me, these are really good. Obviously, these are just two photos that you put together.
Yeah.
And when I saw that you were doing them on film, I'm like, oh, well, it's just like completely taken it to another level.
There was obviously like a phase at the beginning where it's like figuring out the technique, figuring out how to actually get the exposures to sit together. And then, like, pretty slowly, to be honest, then started thinking about like, okay, you know, you now know how the concept works. You're like, now how do you apply that? If you know what I mean? Because if you just kind of point and shoot at double exposures, kind of like just merge photos, you will end up with some good results somewhere. And that's kind of how it started, is some happy accidents. And then, obviously, once you realize how to do the technique, then start thinking about, how you, what images will look good together. It's funny what you're saying about the film as well, Luke, because I always think that I get comments like fairly often on my photos saying like, oh, this is really cool, like what app do you use to do that and stuff? And I'm like, it secretly kills me.
Can I borrow your photo, please?
Always reply very friendly, like, oh, it's not actually an app, but it's like, it's a film and stuff. But it's like, it does occur to me that a lot of people seeing the photos will just think they're digitally edited photos, because, you know, I follow the hashtag double exposure, and half, if not, I'd say about half of the things that come up from that hashtag are obviously digital double exposures. So also, like on my Instagram, the Instagram I use now was my personal Instagram. Like, so I started it already having 400 followers, and they're all my friends, if you know what I mean. I started posting double exposures, but, you know, my friends, presumably, if the algorithm's allowing them, are still seeing my photos. And I bet you a bunch of them have, you know, they have no kind of understanding of whether it's film or digital, or they don't care enough. So to them, it's just, you know, two photoshopped images essentially. But not that it makes any difference. That's something you kind of have to work with.
You taking those weird photos of
exactly, of flowers and shit. But it's like, you kind of like, it's funny because it's like, in a way, I'm like, oh, this is way harder because it's film. Like that's more impressive. At the end of the day, no one cares whether it's film or not. Like the image is good or it's not. So even though like people who know film are like, wow, this is much more impressive. The kind of the end product still needs to be good either way, if you know what I mean. So the fact it's harder does not actually do me any favors. That's not actually true in practice, because the film community is brilliant, and the film community understand that, like, oh, that's harder. And like, you know, I don't know what the digital Instagram community is like. The digital, you know, photography Instagram community is like. I have no idea because I'm not a part of it. But the film community is massive, and it's the only kind of like platform I have to share my work, and they appreciate it, and give me like an opportunity to show other people my work, which is amazing. And only because they understand the process are they kind of impressed by it, if you know what I mean. It's not like they're just like art lovers, abstract art lovers. They're film photography lovers, so they appreciate the process as well as the end result.
Yeah. But they're so crisp, and they're so, you know, a lot of my stuff I shoot on film, I always like, it's like way more grainy than I want it to be, and all this kind of thing. But like, do you do any post editing at all?
No, like, well, I'd say like 90 to 95% of the photos have nothing touched at all. What I find is with my black and white ones, I sometimes bring, like, for example, the black point down. I often end up it's because I with black and white, I pretty much exclusively shoot Ilford Delta 3200, which is obviously super sensitive, and I'm out in broad daylight shooting it, so often I find it's quite overexposed. So I often literally pull the brightness down on my phone. Like, I've never I actually downloaded Lightroom recently. I've been playing around on Lightroom, but I've never uploaded a photo which has been touched by Lightroom. So, it's literally like a matter of on my phone pulling the brightness down, if you know what I mean, or something like that, to kind of like make an image which isn't quite viewable. It's like, this is a bit too bright, and it's just like, I'm not really seeing the merged images here. But I obviously, I've tried messing around with editing some of them before, and I always run my photos by my girlfriend and some of my friends, and she is always like, nope, unedited, it's better unedited. She's like, there's no need to edit. It's like, it's kind of like impressive enough a result as it is, and the tiny tweaks you're thinking of making don't make the picture better enough to justify editing it, if you know what I mean. So my absolute rule of thumb is just leave it unedited. Like, if ever it's possible to leave it. If the image isn't usable as it is, I'll edit it to make it usable. But 90% of the photos are totally untouched. Yeah.
But why are you shooting double exposures on 3200?
I love that film. I think it's brilliant.
Great film, but like,
I'll tell you the reason. It's actually a really simple reason. It's because with the double exposures I do, with the kind of like clear-cut silhouettes, you only get that clear-cut silhouette by overexposing the film until it's completely bleached out. Like, you completely destroy anything in my image, right? You get the silhouette. Anything that's white, which doesn't have an image, has to be like overexposed to like, till the image is completely obliterated. And it's really easy to like obliterate the image on such a high sensitivity film.
Because obviously you're exposing it to the light twice as well. So
that does help. Yeah. And it's just a really easy one because it's always easy to underexpose film, really. I say that, although I do often accidentally overexpose the Ilford Delta, but you just stop down, you just lower your aperture, and you can underexpose it. The thing I struggle with sometimes using 200 ISO film is being able to overexpose it like 5+ stops to obliterate the image. So with Ilford, with Delta 3200, you never have that issue. Even on quite an overcast day, you can always overexpose it. So that's why I use 3200.
I've tried to do it a couple of times, but always on like a 50 or a 100 ISO.
Yeah, I've never used such low ISO film.
It's never really. I've got a couple of all right results, but nothing I'm too thrilled with.
Yeah,
I have actually got a roll of that film in the fridge, so
I love it. I've probably shot more rolls of that. Actually, no, I've shot more rolls of Portrait 400 than anything else. It's by far my favorite film, but other than that, it's probably Ilford Delta. I love I don't post that many black and white pictures because, like, sadly, they're not that well received in comparison. Some of them are, and but I shoot loads of black and white film. It's just like, I don't know. I don't post as much. I post more color.
Yeah, I can see what
camera do you use?
I have a Nikon FE. So that was the first camera my dad ever gave me. That one is really battered now. It still works totally well, but it's really battered. So when it was kind of degrading, I bought a Nikon FA, which is like kind of just like an F. It really functions like an FE, but just like a bit of an upgrade. So it has matrix metering and it has program mode. But actually, I find it way harder to shoot double exposures on it because the camera is like really geared towards giving you a perfect exposure. Everything about it kind of just funnels you into a great exposure.
Cut it in half.
But I don't want perfect exposures when I'm doing double exposures because they need to be deliberately under or overexposed to get the image to sit together. So it's actually way harder to like get the two exposures like how I need them for the double exposure. So after using the FA for a while, I love the camera. It's a brilliant camera. After using it for a few months, I just went out and bought a new FE instead. So now I have 2 FEs. One is like mint condition, and I love it. It was from this Instagram page. God, it's like, what's the make of Nikon? Nippon something. It's called that, whatever that company name is, Club. So Nippon something Club, and they sell secondhand. Check them out. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name, but exactly. Yeah. But they sell like mint condition Nikon stuff. So I saw an FE going for, I don't know, like a little bit more than I would have been like happy to pay, but it was mint condition, so I just bought it. Yeah, because I knew that.
It's funny you say that though.
I loved it.
So we spoke to Tiffany Rubert a couple of weeks ago, right? And she's got like 4 Canon A1s.
Really?
Because she has, so she might. They're all set up differently, right? But she takes her time taking photos. So where we were talking about earlier, where it might take me a month to get through a roll of film. She's the exact same, but 4 different scenarios means 4 different cameras. Well, she's got 4 of them.
What I have now done, one of like the massive benefits of having 2 cameras, is I always pretty much now have black and white film in my Nikon FE and color in my FA. So today I was out with my girlfriend's friend. We were walking his dog in like near Hampton Court Palace, and so I had both my cameras with me, just on the off chance the sun would come out and I could use color film. It didn't, so I didn't use my FA at all. I just used the black and white. But I always now, normally will bring both my cameras out so I can shoot both of them, which is a massive benefit of having 2 cameras. Because before I had to, it's a nice day, but I've got black and white film and it's like tough either shoot that whole roll or take it out or something, or it was really awkward to get color film when you've got black and white in.
And are you thinking about, so when you take your cameras out, are you thinking like, are you at that point where you're like thinking about like, I'm today double exposure, or is it just a case that that's how you're feeling and you'll be like, okay,
what it is normally like, cool it's normally like I'll have some ideas in my head I've been thinking of. Like I normally think of the ideas not when I'm out with my camera, but when I'm like in bed normally, or like just by myself thinking, then I'll kind of think of the ideas, and then when I go out, I'll normally have like a few ideas of things I want to try. I'll normally try them, and then I just shoot. It's like most of my photos are not double exposures that I take.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I love photos that aren't double exposed.
Yeah.
I hate you more now that I know you don't edit anything either.
Sorry.
Different answer. Work. I didn't know if there was a point where you like sometimes put the camera down and don't think about photography, or like obviously you've got ideas and you're like, right, today I'm going to try and do that.
Yeah.
Or is it just a case you shoot what you feel? So that was.
Yeah, it's like it's when I'm out, like so I'll have like a few ideas, and then but when I'm out, like so we're walking around in a new kind of environment, and then you see a scene. And now what I've kind of started doing is, right, you see a nice scene, and then as soon as you see that scene, you're like, how would this work with a double exposure? Before you've even lifted the camera up, you're like, what would that look? What could be cool with a double exposure? What kind of alignment would be cool with a double exposure? Then if the scene is nice, sometimes that happens. I'm like, this would be cool. Then I take the picture and I'm like, actually, like, no, it doesn't need to be layered with something. Like it's a good picture by itself. Or I'll see a nice scene. I'm like, it's nice, but I'm going to be bored of that photo as a single photo. So I'll layer it with something. And, most of the time it doesn't work. Like I'm still like constantly experimenting with them. And most of them are just boring now, to be honest. Like the ones I don't post, like it's fairly uncommon that they like don't work at all, like as in terms of exposure, because I'm quite used to doing it now. But the main reason I take a double exposure and don't post it is just because it's kind of boring. It's like, yeah, cool, worked, but I've done that before. And so that's why I'm kind of like thinking about new ideas, because they're the kind of ones I'm excited by when they turn out right. They're the ones that have gone well, and they're the ones I post, and they're the kind of the ones I kind of put out, if you know what I mean. But most of them, obviously, like as with everyone, it's like less than a percent of my photos are posted, if you know what I mean. Most of them will never see the light of day. They sit on the scans and they will never be
all like that
again. Yeah.
But then saying that, do you ever like you said earlier, right? You sometimes look through old photos, reminiscing 3-4 years ago. I do that with my photography quite often because I'm so lazy with saving my photos to a hard drive. I end up going like, I'll have a blowout and do it every couple of months, and I'll look through old photos and I'm like,
do find some nice ones.
I really like that. Why
I totally do that. Yeah, all the time. I recently, not like that recently, but like a few months ago, I thought I'd figured out this way to get the exposures like perfect with the double exposures. And I went around and shot like 6 rolls of film, like 4 rolls of portrait and like 2 rolls of Ilford. And I was like, yeah, I've nailed it. Like I got the technique down now, got all the photos back, and all of the double exposures were completely fucked. Like I'd completely misjudged what I was doing. So I had no double exposure. I had loads of photos, like nice ones as well, ones I liked from like a holiday, but no double exposures. So I had no photos to post on my, I posted a few like non-double exposures. So then I kind of like dug back into the archives, and you're like, oh, actually there were loads of photos which did turn out really well. I just wasn't that excited by them at the time, so I didn't save them, because normally when scans come back, I'll run through the scans, they're saved in my Google Drive, I will save to my phone the photos that I'm like excited by, and then I never look at the roll again. So maybe have like 4 or 5 photos saved from the roll, and they're the ones I'm constantly seeing. But then I'll go back and I'm like, oh, actually there were a bunch of really good ones. So if you look at my Instagram at the moment, like bar the kind of current, like I've got a few rolls back recently and I'm very happy with the results. So I'm back on posting photos I actually want to post now. But if you look like a few kind of, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 photos back, the last few photos were kind of like previous rejects, and they've kind of weirdly done pretty well. So like I'm fine with them.
Do you have like somewhat of a schedule when it comes to posting?
No, not at all. Not at all.
That's good. I like
literally
that.
just like, I mean, it's when I get rolls back like I have. So now I have a bunch of photos I'm really happy with. So now I'll just post regularly until they're done. Then I just won't post so regularly. And then when I get more photos back, I'll post them. I thought previously like, oh, I should stagger these. So I have like a regular kind of, so I can keep on posting and I don't dip and peak kind of. But now I'm just like, just post them. Just post the ones I like when I get them.
Who developed them? You get it done at Take It Easy?
Take It Easy, Take It Easy. Yeah. Shout out to them. I owe them so much.
They're great. Like we spoke to them a few times, and we've supported them since they're kind of early.
They're brilliant.
You know what I mean? I mean, they're still babies, right? They're still
I know, only like a year old. I know, it's crazy.
But what they've done in their time,
it's insane. That to be honest, like this whole thing with putting my photos on Instagram, I owe to them, because like I mean, I've had Instagram since like 2014 or whatever, I don't know, and had like, it was just a personal account. Started posting, 5 years ago, like kind of 35mm photos, but just of my friends, for like a couple of years, and then I didn't even post them. I'd scanned some photos with Take It Easy, and they used to have a thing on their email saying, if you're happy with any of the photos we've developed for you, send them to us. And so I sent them like my kind of first batch of double exposures. I hadn't even posted them saying, hey, I got these, like I've just kind of started experimenting with double exposures, like, do you like them? And then they posted them on their page.
Feedback, please.
And they were really positive, like said that they were nice photos, and they obviously had a massive following. And then suddenly from that I got like 100 followers or something, and I was like, okay, so the double exposures go down well. And that's kind of what started me off. And then I had a bunch, because that's what I was experimenting with at the time, and that really set the whole thing off. Because before that, there was years I was posting photos of 35mm photos, but did not have like a single 35mm follower on my Instagram. It was still all just friends. There was years before this kind of I kind of started posting these photos that like I was still taking 35mm photos, but I had no engagement with the film photography community. And in previous days
we probably found you through them as well, right?
It's been I honestly owe them so much.
And you've supported us since early on, but like, so Take It Easy Lab, like they were one of the first labs we reached out to in terms of doing, I think we did a giveaway, and they development and scan or whatever it was, but they've always supported us. Like,
they're brilliant.
Even if it's just a message, like,
because they have like a really big reach, and they use it really nicely, if you know what I mean. They engage the community. I feel like they're a young
company, like, and I don't mean this against anyone that's older who's into like taking bird photos or whatever, but they're a young company, like in terms of like their physical age, do you know what I mean? But at the same time, they're still very pure in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it, which is great, which is really, really
they're brilliant.
But I wanted to ask that, because I didn't know if it was solely them guys that you used, but
there's a place in Bethnal Green in London called iCulture. It's this little family run one, and that's like the cheapest film processing I have ever found. I think it's £6 for develop and scans back, and I stopped using them when the pandemic started because they closed their shop, and now I just use Take It Easy. But I did used to use them, and they're really good. They're really fast and really cheap. So if anyone's in London or near Bethnal Green, also shout out to Eye Culture. You should check them out. Yeah.
Words of wisdom, advice for anyone out there?
God, I don't know. No, not really. I don't feel qualified.
Hello to anyone out there. Give a shout out to anyone else.
My girlfriend and my friends back home. My brother, Ross. My girlfriend Layla. Yeah, and I think the main what we were saying before, just take pictures of what you like taking pictures of, and keep doing that.